But the selling directly to the teams and players at wholesale prices, that is. But then again, though, look how many sporting goods stores there are anymore. How many locally owned sporting goods stores are there in Dallas Fort Worth when you really look at it?
The mom and pop sporting goods stores might be a thing of the past.
Yeah, I think very much a thing. And that's, it's you have to compete with the boxes, which you can compete with pretty easily. At least ways they're selling at the same price. They have this MAP price, the bat manufacturers do, which is minimum advertised price. You got to advertise that bat, for instance, no less than $350. Everybody does. But then they go sell it for $175. But you got to advertise it for $350, but they sell it direct to the players and teams for a much reduced price than you can have an ad saying you're selling it for. So they've kind of got you. And MAP is a great deal. When I got into it, you made $25, $30 off the bat. Where now you can make $100, $150. So MAP is a great thing, and it was great for years. Bats were like the most profitable thing in the world. Now, they're not profitable at all.
And from season to season, the bat manufacturer may not be as popular the next year because a different manufacturer has the hot bat, and everybody switches to the hot bat. You've seen that over your career, I'm sure.
Well, yeah, but now Wilson, they own DeMarini, they own Louisville Slugger. Those are the two top companies out there, And then you have K2 Sports. I think they've sold it now, but they own the Rawlings, they own the Mikan. I mean, they all got bought up. Easton Sport has Easton. They had De Beers. They had Combat. So there's not that many to buy from even. Because they're all together and they're all selling direct. So that's the biggest. And the fact that girls don't wear shorts anymore; they wear long pants. That's
right.
the big change.
Well, hey, we just wrapped up
how they got into it.
The College World Series. I know we were talking off air. You usually travel to those up in Oklahoma City. Florida State, congratulations. The Florida State Seminoles are the 2018 College World Series champions. Did you happen to know any players on that team?
I didn't know any players on the team. I know a good friend of mine is the pitching coach for the pitcher, So cheers to her. She's a great pitching coach out of, I think, for one of the pitchers out of Virginia, I think. But no, I don't know anyone on that team.
Yeah, it's an exciting time of year for sure.
Any of them. Yeah, I really don't know any of the players. I know probably every coach, on every team that was there. I mean, when it comes to softball coaches and people involved in softball, I know virtually everybody, but I don't know many players at all. I know everybody who's like old timers, and I know quite a few people. I have quite a few. Every Olympian probably is in my Rolodex, my phone directory. I mean, I have a deep connection there.
Yeah, I saw one of a video you did with. You probably did several of them, but I saw one you did at a show with Jenny Finch a couple years ago. Yeah,
I interview her usually every year. I've done, I think, almost 600 videos on my YouTube channel now, softball videos. But yeah, I've interviewed Jenny Finch, Joan Joyce, Lisa Fernandez, Dodd Richardson. I mean, you pretty much name it. I've interviewed Natasha Watley, most of the coaches. I tried to interview every coach that had won the College Women's World Series. I think I had 2 left to go. Alabama, which he always agrees to an interview every time I see him. We just both get busy and never do it. And I can't remember the name of the other lady. She's out of California. She's she's probably in her 70s now. But I was trying to interview every one of them and every Olympian. I probably have 6 Olympians left to go.
Gary, I applaud you. You've been a trailblazer, early adopter to video, one of the early adopters to podcasting, now in the Podcast Hall of Fame. And what's great about your style is you're always willing to try things unique and different and just figure it out later.
Yeah, I believe you just need to, if you are interested in something, just start doing it and learn as you go along instead of learning ahead of time. There's different camps on that, but like podcasting, for instance, whenever you do a podcast and you listen to your first episode a year later, it's going to be terrible. You're going to go, oh my gosh, that's terrible. So you might as well go ahead and do it because it's going to be terrible anyway.
Yeah.
How much you plan it, how much you work on it, it's still going to be terrible when you listen to it a year later.
Just press the record button and go do it.
Yeah, because most people wait till they think they got it all ready to go, and then they end up never doing it. Yeah, we have a meetup group in Dallas called Podcast Dallas that meets every month. I think we've been doing that maybe 5 years or so. And I promise you, there's a guy that has been coming for 3 years. And every time I see him, I go, "Have you done that first podcast yet?" And I went last night for the first time in a couple of months. Someone else runs that with me. And I said, "Have you done the podcast?" He goes, "I am almost ready. I just had to finish my outro." I'm going, "Dude, you've been waiting 3 years to do this podcast. You know, you don't have to have an outro to do a podcast. You don't have to have an intro. All you got to do is talk." But some people, I don't know, they just find out a reason to put it off or what they're doing.
Yeah, I planned this one at the beginning of the year, and I said, hey, I wanted to coincide with opening day of Major League Baseball. So I had a deadline. I'm like, hey, I got to do it whether I'm ready or not. So we got it going and launched the first one March 29th. And I'm pleased to say we've just crossed over 1,000 downloads for the show. So we're up and running, and getting more and more people that want to come on all the time. And, it's just that getting some synergy and some action and learning from folks like yourself and just the people out there that want to help. And it's been fantastic.
That's good. That's real good. Yeah, there's, I think, 500,000 and something podcasts on iTunes now. So it used to be, you could be one of the top podcasts just by putting out a podcast. I've had 3 podcasts in the New and Noteworthy at one time, back in the day. So it's a little harder to do that now. There's so many you're competing against.
Well, hey, I reached out to a couple people in preparation for our podcast tonight, and I heard from one of your confidants, they probably shouldn't have shared this, that you did a podcast from a hot tub once.
I did the first podcast from a hot tub, back in 2004 and 2005. I used to do podcasts from different places so I could be the first person to ever do it. And that was one of my ones that I always use as my claim to fame. That's the first person to do a podcast in a hot tub. I think I was the first person to do a podcast in a swimming pool. I think I was the first person to do a podcast in Panama. I think I was the first person to do a podcast in Italy. I was the first person to do a podcast in the ballpark at Arlington. I did a lot of podcasts just at different locations, just so I could say I was the first person to do it.
Gary, we have something in common. I actually interviewed the batting practice coach for the Texas Rangers. He can throw right-handed and left-handed. He's also a high school coach here in the area, Mike Weatherford, in the stands at the ballpark at Arlington earlier this year.
Well, that's cool. I did mine on the home run porch. I just went up there. I think they used to be a Fridays up there at the time, the restaurant.
Yeah.
I just went out of the restaurant and recorded my podcast.
Was it during a game? You were talking to somebody during the game?
No, wasn't a game when they went there. I just went there because I wanted to record a podcast at the ballpark in Arlington.
You didn't break in, did you?
No, I went into the restaurant, and back then, the restaurant door opened up to the top floor of the ballpark.
Okay, yeah, the restaurant was open throughout the week, right?
Yeah, you could just go up there and eat anytime you wanted to. So I just went one day and ate, and then went out in a chair and recorded the podcast. Had a little MP3 player, I can't remember what kind it was, and I just sat there and recorded my show.
And that's
But
awesome.
I can claim I was the first person to record a podcast at the ballpark in Arlington.
Yeah. Like I said,
I know who
true trailblazer.
Jared Easley. So did you talk to Jared Easley?
I can't reveal my sources. Actually, yeah, your buddy Jared was kind enough to give me a little insight there. He's part of the podcast movement in Philadelphia this July 23rd. So I'll have a chance to meet him as well. That'll be awesome. Well, Gary, let's fast forward. Something that I don't even fully I don't understand really at all. This whole blockchain, cryptocurrency thing. Both my kids, I've got younger kids that saw the movement of Bitcoin and says, hey, Dad, you should buy this. You should buy into Ethereum and all these things. I'm like, hey, I'm only going to buy into things that I fully understand, kind of the Warren Buffett way. But you've already adopted this whole cryptocurrency thing. You've started another podcast called Crypto Cousins. If you could share with our audience, again, at a high level, this whole movement towards cryptocurrency and blockchain.
I'm really, that's consumes the most of my time now is Bitcoin and blockchain stuff. And I also we do the Crypto Cousins podcast every week, every Tuesday, and then I do a daily podcast called 4 Minute Crypto every morning. I try to get that out by 7 o'clock in the morning. But it's like a news article every day for people who are really into it. And so every day, that comes out. And then we have videos, and we're writing a book, and we're doing a convention, a conference in July, and then we set up at shows selling crypto stuff, and we have a company that sells mining machines for people to mine crypto. And so we're pretty heavily involved in that. I like that a lot. But Bitcoin, I think cryptocurrency is harder for people in the United States to understand because we have a stable currency here, and you have a bank on every corner. But if you live in a country where, like Venezuela, where the currency has gone up 18,000% this year due to inflation, and there's no banks, then Bitcoin makes a lot of sense. So it's just the reason a lot of people don't understand is because they don't need to. Number one, they have a bank, and number two is the fiat currency here in the U.S. is stable, compared to most of the world. If you took a globe of the world and you were in outer space and you looked at the planet Earth and it was nighttime on Earth and there was just a little light, wherever a bank was. Ever seen those pictures at nighttime of the world and you see all the lights in the United States and stuff? Well, if you were to do that with the banks, North America and Australia and some parts of Europe would be really bright, but the rest of the world would be almost total darkness. So most of the world doesn't have banks like we're accustomed to here, and that's where cryptocurrency.
Yeah, we just take it for granted. Like you said, there's a Starbucks and a bank on every corner. Yeah, it's a daily part of life for those countries that are in the dark. But then again, I read an article the other day where someone, no one knows who did it, but you can see it on the blockchain. Someone transferred $90 million worth of a cryptocurrency called Lightchain from one address to another, from like the United States to Europe. And if you were to transfer $90 million worth of money, which I would never be able to do, but if you were in that situation where you had $90 million you wanted to transfer to Europe, it would take a week to get there, and it would cost you 10 to 15% in fees, bank fees. Well, these people transferred the $90 million worth of Litecoin, so they converted their money into Litecoin, that's the cryptocurrency, transferred it to Europe, and then converted it back into money. And the whole transaction took 4 minutes instead of a week, and it cost them less than $1 instead of 15%. What about the volatility? One thing I've noticed, the Bitcoin was going up, and then it dropped 20% one day a while back. What about the volatility of cryptocurrency?
Well, that also has to do with where you're at too. If you're in the United States where the money's pretty stable, you see that because you're comparing Bitcoin to the dollar. But if you're comparing it to the Bolivar in Venezuela, it has 18,000% inflation. It's pretty stable. So, it's according to where you're at. Or if you're in Zimbabwe where they have a $100 trillion bill, it's not moving around near as fast as the currency is. So it's pretty stable if you compare it to those places. But it's a new currency. It's 6 or 7 years old, so it does a lot of that. It's easy to manipulate right now. If someone has a couple $1 million, they can move the price of Bitcoin up or down. So it is easy to manipulate right now. But the thing is, over the long term, it's a long-term, like a digital gold to store value over the long term. Every time it comes down, if you look at, which you aren't going to, but someone was to look at the charting records of Bitcoin over the last 6 years, they would see that every time it makes a major drop, like the last major drop was from 20,000 in December to it's probably 7,600 now. So that drop has happened, but every major drop it's had, it's gone back up afterwards, even higher than where it came from. So it does that every year. You can see it in the charts. And I'm not trying to evangelize. I don't make anything if people buy Bitcoin, so I don't care if they buy it or not.
Where do you see it going over the next 2 years?
I think it'll be 35,000 by Christmas. I think by 2020 it'll be maybe $100,000, and then I think by 2030 it'll be $1 million.
Now, if someone goes to your website,
I'm not a financial advisor, so want to make sure people know I'm not a financial advisor.
That's a disclosure.
That's just my